you very much, and it's lovely to be here today. So I think we'll start just taking a mindful moment, looking at this image. Just pause for a moment. So as was said there, my presentation is present you part of the result of a case study where we're looking at how we can bring wellbeing as a pedagogy into our classrooms. And even though I'm talking about a case study, this could have relevance for any subject area. So mindful pedagogy is the pedagogical tool, and it's an informal one. And what that means, it's small micro moments of mindfulness integrated in the content delivery of the programme. So the case study is culinary arts one. It's called The Mindful Kitchen. It was designed by a colleague and I and delivered by us since 2019. And it focuses on the health and well-being of chefs, bearing in mind that when people think of kitchens, people think of a negative culture, so we're very much aware of the importance of chefs looking after themselves, both as students, but also, looking at real-world learning. We have to make this an option. So what it includes is mindful attention. We introduce students to a mindful toolkit. They can choose the tools that suit them to look after themselves, their own self-care. We also bring it alive, as I said, real-world learning. It's about food, mindfulness around food, mindful creativity, and also then when they go into kitchens, that whole idea of promoting positive kitchen culture. So this pedagogy, I really like what Wamsler says in relation to when we can use mindfulness also as a pedagogy for sustainability. And we all design our programs with the sustainability goals in mind. And so what Wamsler says is that if we use that inner mindfulness or inner sustainability, if we look at that through mindfulness, then we can gradually build that global mindset then for sustainability. So how, therefore, can we create this inner sustainability then as a strategy in the higher education classroom? So first of all is create the environment, create a nice mindful space, even using images like I showed earlier on. Having mindful activities or micro practices that you can integrate into your classroom content, and there's a list of them there. And also then to challenge the students. It's very important, the research shows that it's really important to assess and challenge, because that's when mindfulness, students take note of the mindful exercise that way. So this study then was looking at this curriculum embedded approach, putting wellbeing into curriculum for real world learning. We're training chefs for their profession. So what is the impact of that? So what I did was there were interviews of graduates. There were 11 graduates interviewed, and then the remainder were students just after completing the programme. We also looked at the module reflections that were used every week, where they focus on their character strengths and gratitude as part of that. And there's an anonymous journal there where they journal how they feel at the beginning of the class, how they feel at the end, and anything that comes up for them during the class. And self-care plans for their time in industry, co-creation sessions, linking in relation to the activities they would like involved, and also their engagement with challenges. And so the key finding that came from this research was that the breath is the tool that works for them. And they talk, their wellbeing literacy was very interesting here. They're talking about stepping into wellbeing. They see themselves going into the class, that when they do that, they're stepping into a wellbeing space. So very much then that inner connection with their well-being potential. Also that the breath is the most valuable self-care tool, and the reason for that is they can do it discreetly. While they're working in a kitchen, or while they're studying, or while they're doing an exam, they can do it very much where nobody notices. It's creating, the breathing practice is creating a space in their mind of the student to be stepped into, their language, to reset, to decompress. This is the kind of language that we're talking about, an antidote to stress and anxiety. And then what was very key, they said that it was really important that they got it every week. That repetition, that subconscious habit was being building. So really what you're talking about here are pathways, neural pathways being developed that are, building emotional regulation and an embodied experience of learning, because they're doing it while they're in the kitchen as well. I should have said that. They're doing kitchen tasks as well as doing these exercises. And really interesting here, they view the class as a break. So they're going into a class and they view the class as a break. Now that could have been because it was sandwiched in the middle of a very busy day. So it goes back to the timetabling issue we were talking about earlier on. So then what do we do? So what are the insights then for higher education based on this research? that going back to the charter, the HEA Charter, where we're asked to look at how we can bring teaching and wellbeing into teaching and learning, this shows that the pedagogy or the classroom has a role in wellbeing, in campus wellbeing. And also, from the pedagogical point of view, from mindful pedagogy, it shows that it has an active mechanism for well-being. And it's building that literacy, the way they talk about their well-being. They're very free in doing that. But it also is building well-being habits for their industry. And that's really important coming back from the graduates who have been out there for over 8 years. So they are talking about that well-being. Now, really, when it comes to mindfulness interventions, normally they don't continue the practice. But what was interesting in this study was that the practice was sustained. And that was, I believe, that's because it was integrated into the real-world learning as well. Thank you very much.